Welcome to our webinar session being organized by Advanced Cells and group of companies. We are the leading stem cells and exosome manufacturing company of India. And I'm your host today for today's webinar. I'm myself, Neelab Anand. My scientific background is neuroscience and stem cells. And fortunately, I got the opportunity to work with COVID vaccine. This is just a brief. Today, our esteemed dignitary speaker is Professor Chinmoyee Maharana, who's also known to me for last 16, 17 years when I was working at National Brain Research Center, which is in Gurgaon, Manesar, close to New Delhi. And she was my senior. She was doing her PhD in memory at Professor Shiv Kumar Sharma's lab. Her work was on memory and how the memory formation happens. And excellent PhD student, my excellent senior. And her brief is now she is working as an assistant professor at Jammu University, was at IIT Delhi for some time. She holds a PhD in neuroscience from NBRC and got Young Scientist Award in 2011. By a Nobel laureate, Professor Venkatraman Ramakrishnan, and she went for a postdoc at NIH, National Institute of Health, USA, earned the Fellow Award for Research and Excellence in 2015 at NIH, and Outstanding Postdoc Fellowship from Israeli government. And the most important and interesting thing is she also hosts a community radio show for awareness, scientific and technology awareness. So once again I cordially welcome to all the esteemed scientists, researchers, scholars, and from different institutions around the globe, clinicians, parents, grandparents, and family member of autism affected patient. And the general audience interested in the webinar for today's topic to educate themselves or learn some scientific knowledge. So I'm handing over to Professor Chinmoyee. I request you to welcome her. Handing over to Professor Chinmoyee. Not audible. You are not audible.
Thank you, Neelab.
Yes.
Audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you so much for this humble and I would say such a very close association since we had shared for a very long time. Very thank you for this introduction. And I also thank Advanced Cells for giving me a platform today and the opportunity to discuss about autism and its new avenues about therapies in autism. Before I start, should we wait or should we just begin right away?
Well, first of all, I would like to ask one question because our audience are still adding on. I would seek your confirmation to take you back to your PhD days that you're working on memory formation, right?
Correct.
So this is a very intriguing area. Could you please brief how the memory formation and what was your PhD, just for introduction till our audience are adding on.
Okay. So during my PhD, it was more like a basic research. We did try to understand what are the molecular mechanism, which is the kind of the cellular scenarios of memory formation, which we also call at the level of cells and synaptic junction as synaptic plasticity. So these synaptic plasticity or these changes, as the brain is one of the most plastic thing which we know now, and long ago it used to be thought that brain is very rigid and if neurons die, they cannot be replaced or new neurons can be formed. So that theory has been long ago gone. And then now the new theory is this: there is a change which can happen and brain and the brain cells are at its best. And that is the reason why even after a stroke, how a patient recovers. And many of the other incidences are also known. So that was my basic research. And later on, when I went on to do my postdoc, there we actually studied more like basic, from basic to translational. We worked with the mouse models there, and even with the patient samples where we were looking at certain model for Alzheimer's disease. This is one of the neurodegenerative diseases which affects memory. And that's how, my relation is a long relation with synaptic plasticity and memory formation, I would say.
Fine. So we sometimes what happens when the circuit of the brain gets damaged, the circuit which is storing specific memory, whether it is a short-term memory or a long-term memory or emotional memory, good or bad memory, that gets damaged, right?
Yes.
So could you please speak more on it?
So you already told that, summarized it, that we have the short-term memory, we have a long-term memory. So we have a region in the brain which is called as hippocampus, because it looks like or resemble a sea animal called hippocampus or seahorse, which is pretty much like a kidney bean shape. And that hippocampus is a part of brain which is just like next to our temporal lobe, which is under the skull, next to our ears, you can think about. And there, which actually helps making memories, I can say, rather than also, I can say that it transfers or transition of memory from short term to long term happens there. And these are very interesting, research as a point of view of research. It seems to be very interesting to us. As a layman point of view, it sounds very amazing and intriguing, rather, that many of us, and I think, most of us might have seen some movies also, where people have seen, like, you can have Gajini, for example, or there are movies like 50 First Dates, and there are many other movies where people might can relate that how they have a problem in the hippocampus, or they have got a damage or injury to the brain, and they have lost, making new memories. So these are certain things which everybody can relate to as a layman point of view. Yes.
Very, very interesting. I mean, the entire human brain is very much interesting and very complex, and still needs to be studied very vastly. Anyway, Professor Chinmoyee, I welcome you once again, and I would request you to go with your presentation as we are waiting. So
Sure. I will start sharing my slides.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Yes, the screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So as we all have gathered, and by the time I think more and more participants are joining, I would request everybody to.
Is it possible to maximize the screen? It will be more
maximized. Can you see the whole screen, or you are seeing something else as well?
So, Professor, just enter the presentation mode where you're seeing the bar for Zoom on the left-hand side. There's a small cup-like symbol. That's the presentation mode. So if you can
I already did. I think there is a lag between the two.
Okay.
I already did that.
Okay.
Yeah, I escaped it also. And I think it will soon be visible. Pre-webinar assessment of how much we understand autism. I see many of you have already submitted the response. And I can see there is a mixed audience from the data, that there are, we have participants who don't know about autism, I see majority of the participants know something about autism, and some of the researchers and scholars, they know a little more about autism. So since it is a mixed audience, I thought it will be a little simplified and yet informative to all of us. And I think most of you have taken this survey. So again, I would thank the organizers, Advanced Cells, and thank you, Nilav and Twinkle, for for the hosting this webinar and inviting me for this talk about autism and its new therapies in avenues available. Today, since autism is not just a condition, and it's sensitive yet serious condition where an individual who is affected with autism face a kind of a spectrum of issues. And let's now concentrate on each of them. Since we have a mixed audience, we have kept it pretty simple. Before we go into that, can any of you tell me how many of these children are with autism in this picture? Any guess? Or, if you can point out whether there are only one or two, or most of them, or none of them are with autism.
Let's say looks like around half of them maybe. I can see 3 of them on the left one, the one with international kids, and for the Indian ones, I can say that maybe the middle one with the black T-shirt is slightly of the pink frock also, but then the other ones are not very clear. So overall, like half of it. Maybe.
Okay, thank you for this answer. Okay, how about in this picture?
That's a trick one. Yeah, I think everyone had some
These are pretty
degree
much,
of autism.
yeah.
Okay, so some of you recognizes the personality, I believe. So in the previous one where we have kids, to say be precisely, these are most of them are autistic kids, and you couldn't even distinguish between them whether they are normal or autistic, correct? Well, these are famous personality. You might have read about them. And there is a link where you can actually go about and learn about all these famous personalities who are scientists, artists, musician, physicist, chemist, model, one from India, the Prabhash also. And you can see all the business tycoons, they are all autistic. Now, if maybe you're confused, am I talking about autistic people or the genius people? Are you? Okay. So if you see, I just told, some of them, even Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Mozart, who was, one of the famous composer of his time, Michelangelo, even Barbara McClintock, who is the discoverer of jumping genes, they are all autistic, affected with the autistic spectrum disorder. So what are we talking about? And this is one of the scanners for if you are interested. You can scan and see the list of a longer list of the people and the famous personality who are autistic and yet rare and genius. Okay. So what is autism? So I would say it is a spectrum of disorder. It's a complex and yet complicated neurodevelopmental condition, which is characterized by communication difficulties, which they usually face, impaired social skill. They have a kind of inhibition to talk to, others or mix up with others. Their restricted and repetitive behaviors are very specific. Apart from that, these people or individuals who are affected also experience hypersensitivity to sensory inputs and encounter challenges, whether it is verbal, non-verbal communication. But very specifically, autism doesn't manifest like equally to everyone. It can happen and it can have even the symptoms very differently to individuals, have a wide range of symptoms and even severity level. So you will find people with different symptoms, different manifestation also. So some of the key characters which you will find in autism spectrum disorder are language, social cues, body language, understanding, or they have their own unspoken rules. They prefer certain kind of routines, maybe discomfort with any kind of change, repetitive behavior, as we already mentioned. They have sometimes very, very strengthened areas And therefore you see very changes in these, distinguished or famous personalities. Either it is math, music, art, memory, apart from although they sometimes need support. So if you see in this patient, there are certain difficulties they faced, whether it is a motor difficulty, communication difficulty, social impediment, or sensitivity to change or repetitive behavior. And there are certain other signs of autism if we have parents along with us or any friends or family member who have seen such kind of act with kids or individuals, that they repeat the same word or the movement. Sometimes they have certain choosiness and they're attached to, particularly unusual objects. But if you see these things, you will also find in the common normal kids also, even in the school age child or adolescent, if you see they have difficulty moving from one task to other task. That is called shed shifting. And they have preferred family routines, have highly focused interest, or one kind of, channelize all the energy to channelize in one kind of thing. Therefore, they work very hard towards one or passionately towards one thing. And therefore, they put the genius in those things. Even sometimes they have this, they don't respond to their name at certain times. They're lost, you will find them. They don't take interest, changing things, turning games, or even tasks, as we said. They sometimes prefer alone, playing alone. And even in school-ish child, you will find that they have a very narrow range of topics where they like to talk about. They have, difficulty using and interpreting the body languages. And they have the speak in a monotone or a kind of a sing-song voice. They like to speak in a singing module or a particular tone. And in the adolescent stage, sometimes they avoid eye contact. And it is very difficult even for the caregivers or the clinician to even talk to them. Even, find them very difficult and hard for finding their perspective and other kind of things. And they have their own social norms and rules. So the key facts, I would say, I will reiterate from the WHO, what is the World Health Organization. They have also defined autism as a spectrum disorder. And they say this in 1 in 100 child can have autism. And this rate is increasing because of some reason which we will discuss soon. Why so? Some of the characteristics can be detected in early childhood and maybe, stay undiagnosed, I would say. And with the abilities and the need of these autistic individuals, which can vary and evolve over time, I can say they like to live independently sometimes. They may also have severe disabilities and they require lifelong care and support. Apart from this, many of the interventions known today, they still need, there's still a lot of this prevalence on which we see now on the screen, that is 1 in the 36 kids is one of the latest one, or 1 is to 31 kids in US, and which sounds very alarming. If you see, there is a rise of 241%, after 2000. And if you see, boys are more diagnosed with autism than girls. Yes, you have heard me right, that out of the 5 kids, there will be, if 1 female is found affected, 4 male, can be found affected, as per one of the studies. And although these autism can be diagnosed before the child reaches the age of 2, many can stay undiagnosed at the age of 4, toddler age, or later. Many of them have this non-verbal issues. Many of them have average or above average individual or intellectual abilities, and some can also have a lower intellectual ability. If you see the stat throughout the world, it is globally present. It is not specific to any geographical or any ethnic group or a tribe, I would say. In this one, this is an old stat of 2021 though, but you can see in India, in US, in Singapore, you can see across the world, you will find the diagnosis with the higher diagnosis rate. We are able to diagnose them more and more. And the autism prevalence has increased, since 2000, as I mentioned, and as per the CDC data, you can see this rise in autism is very high. Now this is alarming. Is this, the autism is on rise? So there are few things. One, diagnostic criteria have changed with time. There are more standardized tools for the screening process are available. Therefore, because of the improved screening procedures, increased awareness, like we are today meeting on a platform where many of us who don't know about autism will also get to know about autism, because maybe they have just heard about the word autism, maybe they have seen a movie, maybe they have seen some kids who have some kind of autistic behavior, you can say. So is this just the diagnosis? Let's discuss that. So let's try to understand a little more about autism. Two major factors which have come into the picture is, one is the genetic mutation, genetic predisposition, risk factors, and there's some other environmental risk factor. Now we'll break down further. So apart from those risk factors which you might have also heard, like if there are older parents, if there's some kind of exposure during the prenatal environment or the pregnant mother, or it could be some maternal diabetes, maternal obesity. There are some family genome, or the immunity rates is vaccines or certain kind of vaccine can also. So there have been a lot of myth also associated with. No complete research has been in certain areas which can give a clear-cut, idea about whether these are the only factors or not. But there are certainly known and which we are studying or under research, I would say, like abnormalities in brain structure or the function. Second is the hereditary, as we just we will discuss it a little also in detail, and certain conditions like Fragile X syndrome and tuberous sclerosis and others are also. Fourth is the environmental factor, with certain exposure to toxin at any time in utero or after birth. Okay. Apart from before we go to the hereditary factors, there are certain brain functions which are affected. What are those brain functions which are affected if we see? So you can see hypothalamus, thalamus, cerebellum. Cerebellum is one of the regions which affects the gait or the movement. So that's how that affects in certain individuals. In certain important, like amygdala. Amygdala is for the processing the emotions and the behavior. So in case that is affected, the child has some emotional behavior very different from the normal individual. Hippocampus involves the learning and memory. So certain individuals have a high intellectual power, some are less in those. So these are the reasons which can, make us understand or help us understand why autistic kids or individuals have various kind of spectrum of issues. Okay, another thing is the brain cells which we also call as neurons. These cells are smaller, as we all know, these are the neuronal or the brain cells, and packed very densely in the autistic individual. And sometimes they fire, they are integrated in a manner that they don't only, in a normal individual, if they're integrated one to one. In this case, it will be, one to many will be connected. So this is they have a problem in wiring also. So here we have a little more detail in the major brain structure, which are implicated in autism, like cerebral cortex, which is the major part of our brain. And it has kind of a 2, 3, if you see, they're responsible for the mental functions, general movement, perception, behavioral reaction, and thus it also affects, if it is affected or those neurons are affected, the autistic patients or individuals are affected. I told about the amygdala, hippocampus. Basal ganglia is another part which helps in regulating the automatic movement also. So there it is also. Another is brainstem, which help in, essential survival things like breathing and heart rate control. Okay. So that's how many of the major brain parts are also implicated in autism. Here I have, chart out some of the genes which are associated with, because we know there is a genetic predisposition to autism. Many of the research work recently and been published in last, couple decades, where they found there could be a single gene variant, there could be a many, gene also affected simultaneously in these patients or individuals. If you see, there are like SHANK3, SCN2A. Since we have a mixed audience, we will not go in very detail of that, but to say, because some of these genes are responsible for the synaptic plasticity. Some of these genes are very much known in various of the cellular processes involved. So these either could be a de novo variants, there could be a rare genetic variants, there could be a common genetic variants, and could be some, affected by environmental factors. And mostly, if affected, either they have a case history, in the hereditary, what we say, in the family, if it is there, so they are more risk of it in those family, and they could also be affected by the genetic or environmental factor in utero, as I said, when the baby is in the mother's womb. And if you see, there is a variable expression of these annotation with the color we see, and they can sometimes cause, epilepsy, and can also cause autism. They're also involved in many other diseases as well. So there is a heterogeneity, you would say. Coming to the environmental causes, well, we have heard a lot about it. They're exposed to certain kind of pollution, heavy metals. There could be, gestational diabetes is involved, immune disorders involved. If the baby is born before 36 weeks of age, there are a lot of things being connected, but it is not always. So therefore, we say it is a very complex and a complicated disorder. It has also been associated with lower birth rate, and also about the hypoxic conditions, like if there is a limited supply of oxygen to the brain at any point, whether because of the the umbilical cord being stranded in utero, or during the birth, we can say. So these are some of the causes, and many causes could be when we have low supply of the blood, like oxygen, we can say due to stroke or certain kind of things. Since we have moved quite a lot and we have been talking to a mixed audience, now let's come back to the general population, and let's discuss a few of the artistic, those things which we all hear sometime or the other, and let's bust the myths. Because we already now know that it impacts boys only. No, now we know the girls are also impacted, but yes, majority is the 1:4. The 4 are boys out of that 1 could be the girl. Yes, and we also sometimes hear that these person with the first language is only the best. It's not that. The language is a center. If it is affected, they will have a problem in speech. That's true, but that is also can be improved, I would say. They do not have a complete eye contact. No, it's not like that. With a little help and therapeutic intervention, I think they can also, learn to have eye contact, but they do have issues with making eye contact many of the time. Yes, these people don't show empathy. It's not like that. Like that they are non-empathetic people. They do also have empathy, and they are not unsocial or antisocial, I would say. They can be unsocial, but not antisocial, that they do bad things or, harm others. No, not at all. We cannot, because of their aggressive nature. In some of the cases, people have put this kind of, on their head that all the autistic kids are antisocial, and therefore they have apprehension in the school and among their peers sometimes. Even with the parents, they don't allow these kids to play with the normal kids, to play with this autistic kids because of their kind of behavior known or the stigma attached to them, I would say. And they don't progress at all. That is also a myth. No. Autistic patients or individual, as we saw, they are exceptionally brilliant in certain kind of thing. Yes, they have issues sometimes making shed shifting or changing one task to the other, but they do make progress, and they sometimes need help. Yes, and that easy to identify the autism. And as we all see from the audience how you reacted for the first couple of slides, it is not that easy. That is, they are one of us, and you cannot identify that they are a different category or they look completely different or the facial expression are completely. Yes, in some cases they are. There have been studies which do say certain kind of facial expression being associated with autism, but they doesn't always you cannot identify them completely if they're autistic or not. Therefore, there is a need of screening, diagnosis, and better procedures. So since we talk about the screening and diagnosis, let's see what all can be used to assess the autistic individual. So there are some standardized methods, assessment and screening measures, which assess their social skill, emotional skill, behavioral development associated with this ASD or autism spectrum disorder. There are certain gold standard therapeutic interventions available these days, which are again been started in a couple of last, some few decade, I would say, because the understanding of autism was not very well known long ago. And from past decade, it is getting to understand better and better. And we will learn a few more diagnostic intervention today also. But this will be all very generalized, I would say. I would rather request the clinicians and the researcher who are today associated with us on this platform, please come on and do have an interaction with, if some queries come, you can answer them better than me, because I am a very basic researcher, although we do some translational work, but that is also at a very basic level. And I would therefore request all of you to take part when we finish, when I finish talking about this and when the interaction starts. So there are certain pre and post outcomes being checked when any intervention is given, and then it talks about that what are the measures can be added to the intervention to improve further. So what are these? Some of them could be, these days there are some behavioral which we already checked, we will discuss too. Apart from them, there are some digital, machine learning and AI tool, very recent tools are available. There are telemedicines, and that is kind of a new platform which is already been in place, because sometimes some very good hospitals, let's say we have NIMHANS, and some hospitals, in other places, and in the more of the kind of metro places are available. The patients which are in the far off places, they don't have an access to them. There it comes cheaper for them. If they can't come in person, they can also be assessed. Okay. Other new things which are coming clinically, like biomarkers, which can be seen in the blood, apart from the screening procedure, like we see the cells and the DNA, like in the genetic screening. And there are some clinical care available after once they are diagnosed, and the intervention. Let's talk about some popular autism therapy approaches. One is applied behavior analysis, which is in short called ABA. And this will help all of these popular autism therapies help these parents and individuals, for their skill building and overall well-being for these children and individuals with the autism. What are these AB or applied behavioral analysis, which helps them reinforce certain behavior, strengthen their communication, social skill. Those are the one which is kind of help in this behavioral analysis. Another is speech and language, because their speech sometimes is affected, language communication is affected. This is one of the therapy given to this the individual or the child with autism diagnosed. They help in the verbal and non-verbal communication. This will help them, make more confident individual, reducing, these social isolation. Once they are more confident, they can interact with social in any public place. Third is occupational therapy, which enhances their life skill, eating habits, hygiene, and sensory modulation or sensory processing also. Third is the relationship development intervention, which also helps in strengthening the relationship with their parents, caregiver, clinicians, and even in the public. So, another is the cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, cognition is about the mental strengthening, memory, how these and how can these individual can have emotional, better management of emotional, and how can they remember better if they have issues with memory. They can have some kind of cognitive therapy to improve certain brain areas to act on. So the whole overall therapies which are very popularly known as are these. Apart from these, which are less known, are the brain stimulation, peripheral stimulation. And apart from these days, there are some robotic, virtual reality things are coming in place, and also under research, we can say. So which will overall, these you can see these all various rehabilitation process or equipments involved can help the patient, come as normal as possible. One of those is the brain stimulation. Many of the parents have queries regarding this because it's a very new under research and also in practice coming into place, that whether this transcranial magnetic stimulation or these brain stimulation can help them increase. How long do we need to take? I think clinicians can help me understand or help those patients understand better and give answers to those questions. I am not an expert of the brain stimulation work, but I'm sure there's some of the researchers joined today might can interact with us and tell us a little more about it. But definitely stimulizing brain with an activity or certain kind of these intervention can definitely help them and take their life along new way. Another new intervention which we really want to emphasize today is the new regenerative medicine, apart from this behavioral therapy, brain stimulation, or psychological intervention. These transcriptional regulation treatment or gene therapy. You might have heard about gene therapy, but we might all not know very clearly about gene therapy. Some of the gene therapies where we can correct the gene in vitro or even at other level or in cell level. And these gene therapies, to say, are not in general available to all right now. Maybe in future, maybe with the advanced research and advancement in very near future, it will be available in clinics very soon. And some are at the preclinical stage. Many of the research is undergoing. Some are neuropeptides are available, exosome therapy. So these very small microscopic vesicle, I would say microvesicle, are available in our fluid. It is very easy to deliver and can cross even blood-brain barrier. There are many immune modulators are also been known these days. I cannot, talk or say all of this topic in detail right now because of some limitation at this platform. But we can also raise this question and discuss among us during the interaction session. Okay, so let's just summarize, in a nutshell, that genetics play a role for this, environment will play a role for this. There are some myths along known, but we definitely need diagnosis, early intervention to help these individuals. Okay, so before we conclude the topic, somewhere I found this very interesting one. They have formulated autism as always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious. So the patients or the individual who have this, the spectrum, or if you know somebody, you should be really proud of those because they can make a genius. They might be a genius very soon. And we all know there is a awareness day for autism, World Awareness Day for Autism on 2nd April. So on a nutshell, I would say these differently or socially different people have to accept, we all have to accept them, love them where they are. And because one of these autistic person has made or introduced the world with Pokemon. Everybody knows Pokemon and they can relate to it. Okay, so just to summarize that the autism is a complex neurodevelopmental disorder or a condition where an individual have lack of social and communication skill. They have a different kind of behavior or a reaction to a certain kind of stimuli. They have difficulty social skills or have a stereotype repetitive manner. But these individuals, if diagnosed early on, can definitely be helped because it is a very, very serious condition, and the caregivers and the patients who know them very closely, they know it, how they face it in an everyday life. How can they individually help them if they can go to the clinicians and these proper professionals who can help them for their early diagnosis, their screening, and then their therapeutic, various therapies which we discussed today, whether they are behavioral therapies, psychological therapies, and the newish therapies which are coming into the pictures, like some regenerative therapy, like stem cells, which are underway. Maybe in some days we have all this in place, these genetic therapies, exosome therapies, or certain kind of stem cell therapy. I would say we see a promise in the advanced research, and we can believe that in the coming times we will have have autistic individual can be, completely being found, because once they're diagnosed in vitro, they can be treated in vitro also. And when they are born, they're completely free of autism. So with that hope, I would say let's accept them, understand them, and love them. And thank you, everyone. Now I think we should all, before we go, there are some references, but I would happy to take questions. I would be happy if each one of join hands, the researchers and the clinician on this platform, or the parents or the individuals who know them very closely, can tell us more about it, can answer the question which even I can't answer right now, maybe. Please, the floor is open for discussion. I'll invite questions now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much,
Thank you for
Professor
patient
Chinmoyee.
hearing.
Thank you very much, Professor Chinmoyee. So I welcome all of you whosoever wants to ask and have queries. We can go for the questionnaire session.
Okay, myself Gopal. So currently I'm a parent. Okay. Now I want to know, first of all, these questions in this forum should be restricted only regarding, can we ask some questions regarding treatment related to stem cells, or only about autism kind of thing? I'm trying to understand. Like, my questions are more from treatment perspective. So can we go ahead and ask the questions in context to stem cells and advanced cells, what advanced cells is doing?
Well, I'm the representative of Advanced Cells. So, of course, we have very good number of cases, positive cases, in the case of autism or even different neurological disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Yes, the result is quite promising.
Okay. So I might be taking some time and I'm asking some questions. Okay. So what is the least stage you are accepting for this stem cell treatment in advanced cell?
I would request you for the personal such questions. Our team can get connected with you, or maybe you can.
Okay. So what is your take on MSC cells versus mononuclear cells?
Yes,
these kind of questions.
We use MSC, we use exosomes, and this is, you can say, very case specific or patient specific, person specific thing. So I would request you to join our, come to
Okay. So then I got it. This forum is not for such questions. I got my answers. Yeah.
So actually, this is the forum for general helping. We are not giving money. We are not taking money. This is an educational platform. We are not propagating our business here.
Okay.
And this is just to help others and educate people.
Okay. Thank you.
For any such question, Gopalji, we will get back to you via our sales team. Thank you.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Neelab, I see there are a lot of related questions with the expression, symptoms, and the regenerative medicines. I would rather say let's discuss in the forum if we have expert who can handle, how the regenerative therapies or the new therapies, because the trials kind of, I can see a question if there are some randomized controlled trials. I would say, because I'm more like a teacher as well as researcher though, but this is not a field of expertise to me, whether these randomized trials are in place. I would rather take a help from your team or a person who is a clinician here. They can, help us better understand if there are some certain kind of things are in place.
I would like to add on some information. It's for that we are going to organize another round of webinar. That will be around between 22nd of June till 30th of June. The date is not yet fixed, but the speakers will be talking about the nutrition, because nutritional expert and a specialist, autism specialist doctor panel will be there. So they will take care of all such questions, and how food and nutrition can improve cognitive functioning, behavioral and mood swing of the patient can be handled. So I would request everyone to please join. You will be updated for the next round of this webinar. So please.
I see a hand raised by.
Yeah. Yes,
We
please.
have
Can go with
Nisha
the
Kapoor with us.
Yes.
Ma'am,
Hi,
please
Chinmoyee.
take-
Very nice talk and very informative.
Thank you,
Also.
ma'am.
So I have one very basic, out of curiosity, I want to ask this. Is there any prenatal test or diagnosis available for autism? Like for a lot of other diseases, we have prenatal test. For this, is it there?
Well, clinician can pinpoint that if there is, because there are certain genetic predisposition to this disease, and if these genes can be screened on those time, then yes, I would say there are certain.
Like there is no biomarker, no short biomarker. So I was wondering if there is anything that can be done in prenatal stage.
I would rather request if clinician can, can answer if they want to answer this. But as far as like your and my understanding and background goes, because we do, we know that there are genetic screening, prenatal screening, which if these genes are picked up, then the doctors will, tell the parents that this could be the, because the new intervention of this ML or AI, I think these going to be very helpful to understand. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Chinmoyee.
Hello. Can we start it at medical college?
Can you? So this is Chidanand. Hi. Please. Can you repeat the question, please?
I said I am working in a medical college. Some patients are there also suffering of autism. Can you take the help of advanced cell?
That question is not in my purview. But
Professor Chinmoyee is a academic person, whereas I am the one who is representative advanced cell. In that case, I would request you to come and talk to the concerned person. Here we are not doing any company's publicity. We are simply organizing a platform to get people educated about the medical the background and about the autism. So I would get connected with our people, or all people will get connected.
Chinmoyee, have you done anything on clinical trial like that?
No, Chidanand, I'm not really directly working on at the clinical level right now. We do very basic research we have done because in Jammu, I had a student where we started beginning this work initially, and this just a coincidence when I got an invite for this kind of talk. But I'm not working at clinical trials or anything. Rather, it is our future prospects to say, because we are doing basic research, we will definitely like to have a translational soon, because my interest was also you can say early diagnosis for many of the neurodevelopmental disorder, and this is one of such disorder to say, and we have an interest in those areas. We are looking at the very basic research at what are the cellular and the molecular pathways involved, what are the genes involved, and sooner to say, and we are looking for some kind of early diagnostic and therapeutic avenues. Yes, that could be in a future directions and underway things in process or progress.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for giving your presence here. So I would request you to join our next webinar session. That will be in the last week of June. And you will get email or through mobile update about the upcoming webinar. Please do attend that, because that is today our speaker is more of a scientific background. Actually, she is a scientist, and in the coming session there will be a nutritionist and a panel of doctors, those who are specialized in autism. So I would humbly request you to please be connected for the next round of webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would say
my pleasure.
We got a very nice platform, and we had some very interesting questions also. So thank you, Twinkle.